And we are recording with the one and only Mr. George Webb, hot off an interview with Dr. McCullough last week. And if you like George's work, in the description will be his Twitter, his website, Neighborhood News Studio, as well as a link to buy all of his books, which I believe you just put off screen. Do you have them with you, George?
I do. I'm not doing so much. I'm sorry if I'm too loud. With Neighborhood News Studio these days, they got their server stolen. But
Jesus.
I am doing a lot of stuff or taken or whatever. Um, I am doing a lot of stuff with Eddie Eds, and so we're writing these books about citizen journalism. This was our first one called Citizen Journalism and Public Intelligence. You can ADDY, ADDS. It's really easy to remember. And this is everything's upside down in television. This is our book about Sibel Edmonds, FBI whistleblower. She wears no yellow badge, about vaccine badges in Florida. This is before this book and this woman really swung Ron DeSantis over to kind of being the front man.
Really?
Yeah, this is before DeSantis had gotten on the train. And I
Okay.
wasn't really on the train either. I just wrote the book with Addie and five or six others citizen journalists. So but now that DeSantis is there and it's the election, why not tell people the story of how it happened? I got another book coming out about this book called Tragedy and Hope. And this is a summary book, 300 and some odd page summary book of a 1,400 page summary book. And mine's only 33 pages, 32 pages.
Beautiful.
You'll want mine versus the others.
Yeah. Yeah. For short attention span people like myself. You ever thought
Lots
about
of pictures as well. Lots of pictures. Yeah.
have you ever thought about narrating them or just reading them? Even not even if it wasn't officially on Audible, just reading them?
I did a couple of books that way. I did
Okay.
Blackberries from Hell. I did, and a lot of people said, George, I like you so much better on radio. You know,
What?
they said, no, I'm kidding. I'm joking. That was
Uh,
a face made for radio.
uh,
But no,
how dare they?
how dare they? No, actually, the one strength I have, I think, as far as the audiovisual arts go, is probably in the voice area.
Yeah.
And so I will probably do that and even read the audiobooks if there's a demand. So this last book, all these books, are fairly, meaty, over 100 pages. This one's more like 45, 50, because it was just more of like an issue. But the other one I just did, Rock Island Virus, is around 150, 160 pages. So getting there. But we you know I always want to see if there's a demand before writing another 150 page book, especially with new books. And it just came up yesterday, and this book, and somebody said, would you write a treatment for it? I said, sure, I will, but I'm only going to write 32 pages, and we're only going to sell the first three chapters to see if somebody buys it or not.
Okay. Fair
So
enough.
yeah, and then we'll make it really cheap, and then you can see if you want it or not. So there you go.
Fair enough. Now, and yeah, I'll put the links to all that good stuff in the description. And how dare they say you have a face made for radio? You have a beautiful face, George, and I won't hear anything else other than that. Um,
Done.
so for today's episode, why don't we just jump on into it and you take it away? Just the idea of, I mean, that's a term I vaguely remember from biology, which is, I mean, we're coming up on 10 years since I graduated, so I'm certainly have some cobwebs on those neuron connections, but exosomes.
Yeah, exosomes could be, I call it God's first quill pen. It could have been how God decided to write the first chapters of the book of life. It could be that these are vesicles embedded in a phospholipid, right, or in a lipid membrane with RNA inside, and they're messengers. Does that sound like anything else that might be getting injected in people's arms right now? It could be very well. This is cell to cell communication. This isn't intracellular. So there's mRNA that's intracellular that goes from the nucleus to the little machines, the little protein machines in your cytosol to make stuff. But this is actually stuff that exits, not the endosomes inside the cell, but these things leave the cell and they go to other cells around them and they communicate messages. So this is why I say this might be God's quill pen. Maybe his hand got a little tired as he was writing the the whole biome, and then he went to more of a like a ballpoint pen with DNA,
Hmm.
something that stood the heat and cold a little bit better. It's not as fragile as mRNA, but if you look at mRNA, it mirrors exosomes. Same sort of thing. It's an enclosure, a bilipid enclosure with mRNA in there. Could be that it's just basically a imitation, an artificial imitation of something that was already observed. And why that is important is because of what Dr. McCullough was saying. Throw a little light here. Sorry, I didn't mean to be in the dark.
Okay.
But what he said about a couple of things, long COVID, what he said about various other things that have gone wrong with the vaccination, myocarditis. He described, if you will, here's your two hands. Okay, this is sort of the size of your heart. It used to be, and he's a cardiologist, remember, a clinical cardiologist who actually sees patients, that we used to think 90% of the cells in the heart were called myocytes. These are the things that do the pulling and the contracting, okay, in the heart. It turns out that he said in our last interview that only 30% of the cells in the heart are myocytes. The rest, 70%, are called pericytes. You think about on the periphery or like a periscope, PERI, that supply ready energy and that also provide the structure to make sure that the heart's pushing the blood in the right way. And these are the cells that are receiving some kind of messages from the mRNA vaccine that are causing scarring. These big scars, 15% scarring, 25% scarring. People are eligible for a ventricular device or atrial fibrillation assist device if it's over 15%. He said there's all kinds of scarring going on here. So is it the exosomes, right, in trying to, and one of the key areas for exosomes to communicate to their neighbors is an area of building arteries, veins, and arteries. And the lymphatic system also uses this to say, hey, we need to join hands here and cross link here. We need some disulfide bridges here. We need to get some cysteines together and create some vasculature here. And when that goes haywire, right? And now the messages should be, hey, we should all be myocytes pumping together, like people rowing together in the crew, or we should be like the people supporting the crew, making sure they have enough water and energy to do their job. And when those cells receive wacky signals to be a blood cell, and then they just die off, or there's some kind of cell death there, and then they create the scarring, that's really, really super bad, because what's happening is it's deteriorating the structure around the heart, maybe making the cell walls thinner. So you blow out like a bike tire. Once you blow a hole in these areas, you don't get a second
No,
chance. The aorta gets torn, you're dead in like a minute.
yeah, it's like game over.
So yeah, so that's why this is so important, looking at these exosomes and the telltale. Follow the patents, as Dr. David Martin says. There'd be another good guy to get for you, Tommy.
I think I've tried to get him.
Oh, we just say you got McCullough, and then you get.
I think I've used that before. Some people they're just not interested, or they just don't get my emails, or they just don't care. I do believe I've tried to get him before.
Oh, okay. Well, you've got Dr. Malone so many times. He's the kingfish of all of them. Well, Dr. McCullough is also very prominent. But you get the point here is that this is maybe decoding what's going wrong with all of these vaccines. Long COVID is another thing he mentioned. And sorry, I didn't mean to make it a lecture out of this, but long COVID is another idea where if all of a sudden stress hormones or something, G proteins sit on top of a cell and they cause a triggering of a kinase for all those people who love their biology and biochemistry, and that awakens the cell. And now all of a sudden it starts sending exosomes again where it wasn't before. This is how something can be dormant and then triggered by stress hormones, or triggered by excess sugar in your diet, or triggered by not enough exercise, or whatever. These are the highest risk factors for long COVID. And the beautiful thing about I was criticized for asking so many questions
What?
and not,
Why would you
react.
why would you not ask questions if you get a chance with Dr. Why would you not ask the Grand Wizard? Why would you
Well,
not ask him for his wisdom?
no, you're a good point, but I wasn't going, wow, that's a really great comment. I wasn't reacting because I was rushing to ask the next question.
No,
I
even
should have.
then, that's not a problem. It's you have X amount of time. You can
Right.
always, like we're doing, like you did, you can finish the episode and then look over it at your own leisure and
Yeah.
digest it. But if you've got what we had 60 minutes with him, plus all,
52 minutes.
yeah, not even. And then,
Yeah.
and then I'm running my stupid mouth, introduce like that, and then he's answering. So you've got, I mean, what, you've got half that, you've got 26 minutes to ask your questions, right?
That was
You
good stuff.
yeah.
He ran the table
He's a
on
walking encyclopedia. It's
yeah.
almost scary. It's almost terrifying. If he wasn't such like a loving, wise individual, it's almost terrifying the way he just stares at you and just start like, it's like it's like he's got a projector and the words are on your face. He's just citing studies from a month ago and from 21 years ago, and
Well,
you're
and
like, what are you?
I understand some of the things, that he might be talking about medically, because that's a story sort of, and you can remember methods of action, mechanisms of action. That's easier to remember. But the names,
Yeah,
Chow, Landrich, and
yeah.
Holstein,
Yeah.
are
Yeah. Like
the
what
three
in the
authors.
what in God's name? Like, which makes it all the sweeter when people try to like say he's a kook. It's like, do you want to get in the it's like getting in the ring with Mike Tyson. Like, do you be my guest? Like I'll put the fight together. I'll be Don King. I'll bring the microphone down from over me. I mean, God bless your soul. But McCullough's gonna go full. Yeah, he's gonna Evander Holyfield you or whatever. He's gonna
Yeah,
bite your ear off. Like, God
Mike
bless.
Tyson would be the. I would go into. I mean, get the $1 million for the punch, and you may or may not survive. But Mike
Yeah.
Tyson for $1 million, I wouldn't go in,
No.
because it may be the last time you ever see daylight.
And I don't
I
know if the
mean,
$1 million
something.
would be worth like the retina replacement you need. Like, you know?
Yeah, or you may never eat solid food again, or
Yeah, I
something.
mean that's not going to cover the
But
medical bills that you need for the rest of your life. How much does a caretaker cost for 12 months? I mean, God bless, but I mean whatever.
do the math. Do the math.
Yeah.
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 Well, and he just was, like he said, study after study after study after study he went through. And so I thought I'd just pick out three of them today, which, the remdesivir thing was something that he talked about. And then he tweeted it out about remdesivir after we had the show. And I think it was another Glenn Davis or some other person, I believe, that also touched on that topic. But long COVID is a real mystery right now. And so is this myocarditis. And we know there's an action with the parasites, right? The parasites. So not parasites, but parasites. So why wouldn't it be the normal messaging that those receive in the heart, mainly during fetal development? A lot of times these growth factors are mostly present during that period, but you could study that and then you could come up with an mRNA analog to that, and that, or accidentally through your mRNA dividing up and fractionating, you may be sending signals that you didn't intend to send, smaller, shorter peptides, all over the body. And so this is the great quest. This is the great exosome quest. Now you throw in the Dr. David Martin thing, which is follow the patents, or Reinhard Fulmer, or these other guys who follow the patents. I did some research and had some great researchers come up with the fact that the company that did the lab, the leaky lab in in Wuhan, bioMérieux, and they did 3 labs that they lost. All right, why isn't anybody looking for those? These are BSL-3 labs. The same guy who was responsible for putting those labs there, leaky labs and mobile labs we lose, is the same guy who is the key beneficiary, Stephen Bancel, for Moderna. So he has the patent for this exosome technology. bioMérieux has the patent. So the natural, and guess what he then does after he leaves China and the leaky labs? He has the artificial imitation of
Mm-hmm.
the natural. So he's got both ends covered here. And anytime I see that kind of, that's too coincidental. He has the most to gain from leaky labs and mobile labs we lose, and he has gained a tremendous amount. So that's where I'm at with exosomes. When I see red flags like that with people trying to bury things and cover things up, I say that's where I need to hone in.
Mm. So, what would be the bigger implications of the mRNA? Would it be that it was then I get what you're saying, right? It's not intracellular, it's intercellular, meaning it's not like within states, it's between states. It's or like biology, like the idea of like horizontal gene transfer where it doesn't necessarily need to be through successive generations, but there's like vectors and you have vesicles and all sorts of weird stuff that goes sideways, maybe chronologically sideways. What is the what is the big, not to say that's not important, but what's the big importance? Is it that it was knowingly designed to do this, or is it that this is a cover up? Is it, or is that beyond the scope of what you're talking about?
No, it's right on the money. I think it's both of those things. It's a way of choosing by emulating exosomes, the natural cell-to-cell communication. It's a way of choosing winners and losers. You could give people the good messages that have a good credit score, for instance. Let them have the good vaccine or the good food or the good water or whatever, or the good air, and then do harm with the bad, or just withhold the essential messaging that's needed. I am not saying that's the design here of the mRNA vaccines. I just see a tremendous overlap between exosomes and the mRNA once you put them inside a vesicle, right? They call them EVs, or extracellular vesicles. And that's what the vaccine is when it goes in your body, and that's what the exosomes are. And see, exosomes are really important for cancer too, because if I think I'm a cross linker and I'm going to make a hard artery, and I break away from my friends, and then I go to the liver where I'm filtered, or I go to the pancreas where I'm filtered, and then I get there and I start sending out the messages, hey, we need to make a hard artery here. That creates a tumor. So this is the messaging, same messaging when it goes awry that create tumors, cancer. And this is the idea of metastasis. So this is the idea of reversing cancer. There's a doctor who owns the LA Lakers. I call him Dr. Sing Song because I can't remember his name. I think it's but he was going to be the cancer czar for Trump. He had a proposal to
Okay.
be the cancer czar. And what does he work with? Exosomes. The other area where if you have a transplant, you know that if you don't have a complete blood match of the person who you're getting the organ from, your own body will attack that organ, called HLA compatibility matrix, the leukocyte antigen, hemoglobin leukocyte antigen matrix. But the idea is, if we could send a message to that organ and say, hey, stop fighting this, send a message to the immune system, don't attack this organ, it could be a way of reducing immunosuppressants, which sometimes are really hurt people. Chemotherapy, reduce that usage. This Dr. Sing Song is doing that as well, the guy who owns the LA Lakers. So this is the next great frontier. I believe this research in exosomes has been going on for 70 years, or maybe 75, ever since the nuclear age. Why? Because if you take any kind of gamma radiation and put a petri dish with human tissue or human cells, or any kind of cells, mammalian cells, plant cells, it will screw up the DNA. And what comes off of the DNA are these little exosomes. And I know Cloutier, the guy who's running the war in Ukraine, I know his father did this at Oak Ridge National Laboratories. So I know they've been studying exosomes a long time. The big problem with exosomes is they're small. They're only 100 nanometers, the same size as coronavirus. Interesting. And they're hard to isolate. So you have to use ultra centrifugation to separate them out. But you have to do the same thing for coronavirus.
Yeah.
So, but it's an exciting thing. It could be that we've had a stealth human exosome project the last 20 years. Nobody's told us about it. I find it very difficult to believe if they isolated it or at least saw it with the first, let's say, electron microscopes 30 years ago. It'd be hard for me to believe they didn't know that they carried mRNA or RNA at that time. And I think there has been a kind of a DoD, DARPA type project here. And that's why Moderna comes out of nowhere, never made a product. And all of a sudden, we're going to do 200 million vaccines out of the chute. And now what are they up to, a billion? A lot anyway. So a lot to think about, but there's some questions that can be answered here.
Uh, to play devil's advocate, could it be possible that there was a stealth project and this was just the biggest like human trial ever, and maybe it was intentional, maybe the release of COVID was intentional, maybe it's unintentional, but I mean it's like it's a window to right. It's like Project for New American Century. It's like absent a cataclysmic event in downtown Manhattan, and then like a year later, the World Trade Center gets hit, and it's like, well, you know, time to take this old Patriot Act off the shelf and dust it up. All that shit's written years before. By the way, anyone listening, all this stuff's pre-written. It's in the book Raven Rock. All this legislation's pre-written. They're just waiting for a time to use it. They're just to take it, sign it in, and I mean, literally, Eisenhower like used to have like mock documents that when they would run drills, they would use the mock document. You know, it'd be like watermarked, like this is not real. But I mean, Kennedy would talk about when they would run drills, he would get the same mock documents, and almost like checking out a book when you're a kid. Before him, you could see Dwight's signature. He would write Jack Kennedy after him. It would be LBJ. Like they would use these things. So could it have been? I mean, so regardless, and there are some huge implications to that. Was it intentional or was it not? But I've tackled that in a million episodes, and that's kind of beyond the scope of what we're doing right now. But let's just say, regardless of intentionality, it could be like, hey, we've been doing this research. We've been dumping. Let's say there is a stealth exosome project. We've been doing this research. This is, it's like anything that becomes an information technology. It's increasing exponentially, right? It's like the Human Genome Project. Like, took 13 years, and after the first 7 years, I think we were only 2% through. But by the 13th year, we got 100% through. So it's maturing. You got this thing, and all of a sudden, the COVID window could just be like, oh baby, like n equals 7 billion. Like we're gonna get so much data from, and they don't care about death and destruction. Yeah, we'll lose a couple people, whatever. Could it be that because they're looking at maybe in their minds justifiably, like LeMay could justify killing 50 million Americans if it meant we took out the Soviets. Maybe, and this is all wild speculation, maybe there is some stealth exosome project that we'll all learn about in 100 years. There's a race between us and China for the dominance of like the human genome. Maybe they looked at it and they're like, we got a window, let's do it. Could it be that? I mean,
Yeah.
I know we're flying off into the reaches of
Well,
orbit now, but
there's precedent for this, and I think maybe we'll learn about it in 100 hours. There's precedent for this because we did something very similar with the polio vaccine.
yeah,
With the polio vaccine, 1/6 of the vaccines had all these soft cancer producing viruses, and creating 100 different viruses. Cutter Industries. It was a shotgun experimentation on, I don't know, I can't remember, 30 million kids got the thing. So 16% of that, 5 million kids, right? This is a far greater test. And Dr. McCullough also said how it could have been done just through not refrigerating the vaccines enough. If you don't refrigerate the vaccines enough, they fractionate, they become not one long peptide, they become two, right? They become two RNA messages. They could go in different directions now when they get put into the body. Now they go do two different things, completely different things. And where they break is probably random. Where they break is probably random. So you get a whole bunch of experimentation, a shotgun experimentation across a whole bunch of people. That's why I think you're seeing such a random set, never before seen
side
before,
effects.
of side effects all over the map. And places where I anticipated, because of blood and filtering and so forth, and pancreas and the liver, nothing, he said, or pretty low. but in the heart and lungs, big time, right? And there are, you heard him mention, there are heart proteins. I think it was CD Paul Cottrell told me 5 different receptors that weren't going to be in danger in February of 2020. And I was like, oh, come on, Paul. And you know, that we all know from studying HIV, it's CD4 and CD8 and those, but he was saying, oh, no, CD147. Well, it does turn out now, almost 2.5 years later, CD147 is one of those receptors on the heart muscle. And I'm like, wow, that is scary that he knew that back then. And remember, if I have a length of RNA, I don't need to have the whole thing. If it makes a protein with the right part of the, let's say, a spike protein that's in the binding domain, the area that basically locks on and kind of where the two space shuttles meet, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
That's the business end. That's the only part that matters. Anything that happens down here on the arm and so forth doesn't matter about cell attachment. So they're just seeing what will attach to what cells. Once they know what attaches to what cells, then they can do what they did with coronavirus. You come in and you put a furin cleavage, that other protein comes off, and now you have the two handholds for cell fusion on the cell rather than just the one. And that's exactly what happened with coronavirus. So could this be just an explosive test just by not keeping the vaccines cool enough for mRNA? We don't know, but that's the result.
Hey, George, I'm gonna use the restroom real quick. Tell everybody where
Okay.
to find you.
Okay. I am George Webb, and my Twitter is real George Webb 1, the numeral 1. I just wrote 2 books with Addie Ads, my editor and co-author. This is about a group of people that well, my travels around 24, 25 different news gatherings, seminars, workshops called charrettes. And the secrets of what we learned in those charrettes are in this book. This is about one very brave woman who stood up against the whole establishment in Florida, even before the governor was anti-vax, and changed basically the flow of the whole state of Florida, which is Sibel Edmonds. Before that, she was a whistleblower and one of the few people who've actually gone to the Supreme Court and won against the FBI. Of course, they immediately gagged her after that, so she couldn't talk about her winning. But then she wrote a fictional book, which basically said everything that she couldn't say in real life. So that's Sibel Edmonds. And then this book is a book, I'm on the Duke Report every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday at 5 o'clock. And we go for an hour, and I talk with Peter Duke, a Hollywood creativity consultant. And he has generously lent his time to our different meetings with different citizen journalists. And this is the latest book that he features on what he calls the Duke Report. The Duke Report is a collection of books that changed the world. And this book is a 300-page treatment on a 1,400-page book, and I'm doing a 33-page treatment on both of those books. And the great Tommy Carrigan
Oh, hello.
is
Hello,
now
everybody. Welcome
back.
back to the show. Have you been digesting your propaganda? Um, I don't know why. Kind of another out of left field. Could it be that we are approaching, you could cite Ray Kurzweil and his predictions over the last 30, 50, 60 years. Could it be that we are truly approaching the age of transhumanism, not just in, the super wealthy. Well, now it's getting a little more affordable stem cell therapy, but it's still like, front of the line for organ transplants. And then, genomic, and you can say CRISPR, which is from the get-go, but for the old people that have the billions now, there's going to be, there's designer treatments you can get. Most of it's still technological, a stent, a pump, a whatever, a pacemaker, whatever, some hormone indicator or daily treatment, right? A lot of super wealthy people will go to those biogerontology clinics, and they'll get, weekly IVs of B12 and L-glutathione, and or daily like NAD drips and human growth hormone. But what it's also showing is like we are slowly approaching just like, the first radios, the first TVs, the first color TVs, right? The first cars, the Model Ts. It is a new thing. The first cell phones, the rich guy with the cell phone the size of a suitcase. We are approaching this new thing. Could it be? And I think this would be one of the least evil things humans have done. Not to say it's not still evil, but just in the scheme of human history, every genocide out there. Could it be that exosomes are the next key, the next stepping stone to hyper longevity for individuals like a Musk, a Bezos, a whoever? And because the clock is running, and maybe they're 50, maybe you're 80, maybe you're 90, they don't want tiny trials here and there. Could it be they're like, let's just get the most accurate trial we can get? Let's input the data of 7 billion people. And this subscribes to an idea that, they are above the world and they're kind of, and I get that that's not always an accurate picture. It's never that simple. But I also, far worse things have happened in human history. I mean, the Germans, their entire justification, aside from that, they didn't believe the Jewish people were actually even humans. They said they appeared human. They have ears and eyes, which is just so fucked up. But their whole thing was not only that, we need to research on them. Our Luftwaffe boys are, they're freezing in the Atlantic when they bail out. And, so that's why we need to do this hypothermia research on Jews. And can we freeze you and unfreeze you? Can we use glycol and alcohol and all sorts and it was for the war front, it was for the war effort. Can we test Pervitin, tabletized meth, which they would use on, and this is from Norman Ohler's Blitzed. They would use on Jews at, I don't know, I think it was Treblinka or something. They had like a track, like a 400-meter track, and they actually, I mean, it's kind of you gotta admire the thoroughness of the test, and surely I'm sure that will be taken out of context one day. But they would actually the percentage of the track, some of it was rubber, some of it was pavement, some of it was pebble, some of it was grass, some of it was mud, some of it was hilly, just on one like gym size track or like high school size track was actually in the same proportion of what overall roads were in Europe, so that they could get an average take of how long shoes lasted. So they put two different shoes on Jews of different theoretical designs, boots for the Germans, for the Wehrmacht. How would they stand up on these different things? And because time was of the essence, they would just run the Jews 100 hours straight until you drop. So instead of doing a mile a day, they'd do, I don't know, 100 miles a day, and you get their data that much faster, and then kill two birds with one stone. They'd also be testing endurance drugs on them, different mixtures of coke and meth and LSD and blah blah blah. We've seen that in the last 77, or the war ended 77 years ago. We'll call it, I don't know, we'll call it 83 years. So from 39 forward, we've seen that there are people alive today who were alive at that time. It's not even some ancient idea of like, well, the Egyptians thought that they were gods and they had no, 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 no. This happened when heavier than air flight was 30, 40 years old. This is right in the rear view. My grandmother, rest her soul, was alive during that time. She was a kid. It's right there. It is right there. Could it be that for whatever justification, maybe they're a true believer and they believe that this is for the evolution of mankind, that this is bigger than nation states and individual human rights? Or it could be DARPA saying the US empire must go on. It could be China saying we must usurp the great Satan. There could be something going on, whether it's true believers drinking the Kool-Aid or whether it's just, the guys at the very top, they're like, I'll be honest, I just don't give a fuck. Could that
Yeah.
be going on? Could there, and I know that is a giant hypothesis, but could it be they're looking at it like, if they call them useless eaters anyway, they talk about depopulation anyway, they might be like, hey, just like the Nazis, like, hey, before we execute all these Jews, why don't we get some like shoe data out of them for invasions and some drug data out of them? This is precedent. And again, not ancient times. 83 years ago is right there. Could it be that that's going on now? You got some people going, we're going to kill off all these fuckers anyway once strong AI and robotics come online. Let's do a research. We got 7 billion of them. Everybody's in lockstep. We'll just mandate it. But if you want to ever take part in society again, I know that was
Yeah.
a mouth
No,
garble, but
no, that's great. There was a Path Foundation. It was called the Path Foundation, and they were going to Epstein's Island,
That's
and
always good. It's always a good start.
yeah, and Fergie, the royals are in the news. Fergie, the Duchess of York, was going down with this doctor named Eric Braverman, and they were sort of doing this thing. They would trot out Stephen Hawking and say he should have been dead at 18. You look at him, he's 70 now or 60 or whatever, how old. And they were talking about longevity and the Ray Kurzweil issues, type of things. And the first day is super vitamins and exercise and so forth. The second day gets into, well, shouldn't you have a couple of organ transplants on hot standby?
Mm-hmm.
If you're David Rockefeller or whatever. And then third day gets into this more future type stuff. But you're right. The reason why, and it does kind of, if you hear Ray Kurzweil's talk, it's like if your carburetor goes out, you don't throw away your car. If your heart goes out, you shouldn't
Well,
have to die,
I mean,
David Rockefeller,
sure. I mean, no, I'm not
So
being sarcastic. I mean, he has some ideal points. Why should does death have to be a constant? I mean,
yeah, I mean, it could be
sure,
considered a failure. So
sure.
just like you would do maintenance on a car, let's say carburetor, you used to spray in the little gum out, to keep this is in the old days. I don't know what it is now with the injectors, but you keep them clean. And so you spray in there a little bit and then it keeps them clean and your car keeps running. Well, the same idea with exosomes. If you send in the messages, there are sort of a ticket to ride ticket for every cell you have called telomeres. And telomeres are basically a punch ticket.
Mm-hmm.
And after your cells divide so many times, let's say 100 divisions, I think it is, that's it. The cell programs itself to die so that you don't make bad genetic copies. Well, you could reprogram those to say, hey, you know what? Let's press reset. When I was a little kid, they used to have little rides that were outside of the grocery store that you could put a quarter in, and it'd be a spaceship that would ride or whatever. And we'd go like this, thinking we were controlling the spaceship. It wasn't. It was just going back and forth. But we'd throw another quarter in before the game stopped, and you could keep feeding quarters. There's kids, it wasn't quarters, it was nickels back then, but you get the idea. Is you could keep sending the messages to the cell to say, no, another 100 divisions here, or have it send messages to its neighboring cells to make more of those. If you need more heart pumping ability, then make more myocytes. If you need more support, make more parasites, parasites, I should say, etc. And just have any kind of diagnostic test and send any kind of exosome message. We're learning, this is the key, we're learning with this mRNA how to send these messages. So we don't need the exosome anymore after mRNA. And that is just too promising of a regenerative medicine. The exosomes are currently being used in regenerative medicine already. So this isn't something I'm dreaming up here. They're currently using exosomes, and what they're doing is seeing stem cells, putting in stem cells who are getting a message from the neighbors where they're injected, and that coaxes or coaches those cells to be those different things. Now, there's two different main kind of stem cells that I'm familiar with involved in different tissues. One is called mesenchymal stem cells, which are mostly around the blood. Arteries and so forth, and blood, the lymphatic system and the blood system. And then there's these pluripotent, which means they can be almost anything, stem cells. The inducible pluripotent is the one they use in the laboratory. So iPSCs and MSCs are the two big ones that seem to be where most of the research is. And they're doing this in the laboratories. It's not going to be long before they start doing it in animal models, I'm sure, and then doing it in human models. Regenerative medicine is this in humans. So this isn't something that's speculation. It's happening now, and I think it's going to happen a lot more of it. And the promise, like you said, the Nazis were willing to kill people to know how long shoes would last. What would the Nazis have paid to live forever?
Mm-hmm.
And just be the ruling kind of Oracle of Delphi and be 90,
If they could
100.
truly do the 1,000-year Reich,
Yeah, and be the
they
guys.
they'd
If
do
they could
anything.
remain healthy and young, why not?
I mean, yeah, you got to look back at like I mean, what do they do even, kind of quote unquote olden times, right? It's like cryogenic. If I die, freeze me, right? I mean, I remember in like 2003 or 2 reading, like I was obsessed with like biogerontology in like middle school and high school, like a totally normal kid. And I remember reading about like a supplement called Juvenon, which was actually, and then they sold it for like $12,000, but it was actually just acetyl L-carnitine and alpha lipoic acid. Two, you can go buy them at Walmart like $1 for like a month, and it showed like increased lifespan in like mice and dogs, and it's a they're very powerful antioxidants. And then bunch of studies with resveratrol, right? That's the one of the compounds found in red wine, and it activates the, I can never remember what it is. It's either the S1RT or SIRT, the SIRT1 gene or something, which is one of the few things to actually show increased lifespan. And then another big one is, and these are all the ones that have clinically shown increased lifespan, not to cure an illness, but to just increase the average lifespan. It's alpha lipoic acid and acetyl L-carnitine. It's resveratrol, as well as a massive caloric deficit. Not even dieting. Dieting, you never want to go on more of a 500-calorie deficit, because after that, it takes 3,500 calories to lose a pound of fat or to gain a pound of fat. But you never want to lose more than 500 in a day, because past that, your body starts to burn lean muscle mass, which actually starts to decrease your caloric engine, which is the very thing you're using to. So it's a self not important right now. But beyond even that, it's eating like 1,200 calories a day shows the body does go into survival mode. It actually changes the rules that we know as steadfast actually start to change. You actually start to burn less calories. Your body goes into survival mode. And we know that, and that one's wild. That one you can get like a 40% increase in life in mice. Now, granted, if you want to do it, you're going to look sickly. There are people that do it, like Aubrey de Grey. I mean, they look rail thin, but all their biological markers technically are good, and it shows them being younger. Those are like the first steps. After that is like heavy supplementation, intravenous supplementation. After that is pluripotent stem cells. After that is organ transplants, whether or not you're rich enough to just have, a farm full of Chinese people under your estate, or you're having them grown specifically, which I'm sure some really wealthy people could do. After this will be actually genetically engineering your body, and or artificially producing organs that maybe loosely resemble our organs but are more efficient, right? A modern day Bugatti doesn't look like a Model T. And then after that is the idea of nanobots. I think that's called the third bridge. Each one of these are called bridges because it helps you get to the next. And the golden spot is the escape longevity velocity taken from like orbital mechanics, is that you want to get to a point where you're adding a year of life, or you want to be adding 366 days to your life every 365 days, because now you've quote unquote broken even, so long as you don't get hit by a car. Sorry, I know I'm rambling right now. This is all in Kurzweil's books, Transcendence and the Singularity is Near. You want to keep using one to get to the other, right? It's making a business, Elon with Zip2 or PayPal, and then you bring it back to the table and you make another company. Then you take all those profits and you bring it back to the table and you make another company. But these people are so hellbound to do this because you have, as far as we know, you get one life, and they'll do anything to push this. They'll spend $100,000 a month on. You look them up, these biogerontology clinics. I think there are a lot of them in like Denver or somewhere. I don't know why they're the idea that they wouldn't, if they have found something that potentially holds the cure. Yeah, if Nazis are willing to do it for nationalism, these Davos billionaires, they'll I got a bridge to sell you if you don't think they'll throw away 100 million lives just to figure this shit out faster.
Well, this isn't speculation with Epstein. Epstein was flying to the Zorro Ranch. They gave the presentations on longevity there.
Oh yeah,
They actively encouraged the sperm banking so that they would have
he wanted an army of his kids. Yeah,
army of kids. Kissinger is a part of this. This is all DOE Q level clearance. But the idea is, hey, I'll have a bunch of Hamiltons. A lot of people say George Washington fathered Alexander Hamilton when he went on a kind of a spring. Not true, but
really?
went on a spring break trip. Yeah, he went on a spring break trip to the Caribbean. I
Panama
mean,
City.
that could, yeah, it could
George
be
Washington just fucking shotgunning natties and slapping
eight
ass.
18,
with
18 years later.
with Kanye stunners on.
Yeah. 18 years later, who's running the artillery for the whole, Revolutionary War? 18 years old, running all of artillery for the
Uh,
Revolutionary Army. Anyway, don't want to get off on that, but the idea was for a while have a Hamilton go down and sire 5 or 6 kids because you might need that kidney one day that doesn't react. You might need that whatever lung or heart or whatever, but we're getting past that. This, like you say, it's a bridge technology. I read Ray Kurzweil, Singularity is Near. Aubrey de Grey, I can't believe he's still alive, and I wouldn't want to live like Aubrey de
I
Grey.
was gonna say, is he still? Last time I saw a picture of him was like 15 years ago, and he looked like Gandalf had undergone chemo. But no,
Yeah,
I
not a
know
good.
no fucking shade on people with cancer. I'm not trying to make fun of that, but you're like, you look at him and you're like, is this healthy?
Yeah,
You
I
see,
would
like
not want to be alive. I would
he
rather
was like
be.
building muscle and working out. He's like actually decreases your life. And I'm like, I'm looking at like a picture of just like a healthy guy who's just throwing out 100 push-ups. I'm like, I want to be that. And then you see him and he's like, I'm the ideal man. And I'm like, dude, no,
No, you're
you're
not.
and
No,
if
you're
you
not.
are, I don't want to be that.
I don't want to be that. I would rather do the 100 push-ups and get,
I'd
die in
rather
a hail of bullets in Dealey
yeah,
Plaza. Yeah,
yeah. Like, what?
doing the right thing.
Oh, JFK.
Yeah, yeah.
I was like,
Do the
I was like
right
the
thing is what I'm
gotcha.
trying.
I
I
was
don't want
like
to be hiding away, wasting, so I can live another day. I'd
Kissinger.
rather.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And Kissinger is this. This is the program, right? I mean,
he's
Kissinger,
99.
David Rockefeller wanted to be on this program. Dick Cheney seems to be on this program. Wolfowitz wants to be on this. There's a cadre of Project for New American Century guys that think this is fine.
Absolutely.
So, you know, that's what they are calling the Project for the New American Century. It's not taking over everybody who has oil. It's getting to the next century.
Gee, you're
you know,
right. Or there's another one, and it's yeah, and it's like yeah, they just replace the words, kind of like Eisenhower with the mock legislation instead of barring a new Pearl Harbor. It's like barring a new worldwide pandemic where we can massively research mRNA technology. Maybe.
that's what we got. Just to bring it back down to ground,
Yeah.
I am working with this guy who invented single strand PCR. So Kerry Mullins did double stranded. This is single stranded for cancer research and telomere research. And telomeres is the name of the game in aging. So I'm working with the best people and asking a lot of questions. He watches you, Tommy. He says Tommy should be a doctor. I
Who
agree
is
with
it?
him. He doesn't want to divulge his name because he doesn't want to be
Gotcha.
trolled. But I call him Scott Brilliant, Dr. Scott Brilliant, and he's worked
Shout
with a
out
lot.
Dr. Scott Brilliant. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, and he says, why isn't Tommy a doctor? But he is a big telomere guy, and I'll be bringing you more as we do this research. And I'm going over all the exosome stuff with him, PhD in biochemistry, worked with some of the top Nobel laureates like Tom Check, who ran Howard Hughes Medical Institute, came up with, what did Tom Check come up with? I can't remember. Telomere, I think, telomerase binding protein, I think, TBD, maybe. I can't remember. But I do remember he ran Howard Hughes Medical Institute. So we're getting a lot of feedback. I'll have more for you on the next podcast, I guess, is what my promise to you.
Yeah. Um, yeah, you look at Rockefeller's dead, but yeah, you look at a Kissinger or I mean, how old's Dick Cheney now? I mean,
Getting up there. I think he's in his 90s, maybe 80, late 80s. Dick Cheney's late 80s.
yeah, I mean, right, the first thing is like to get all the money. That's like the human, the drive, the bloodthirsty. Doesn't have to be bloodthirsty, but that's the first. I want to get that. A lot of people will get money, then you see them kind of change course and they get a family and they find something fulfilling. But for the people that keep pressing that dopamine button, right? Like the mice in those meth tests, or you on the little ride outside the grocery store, they keep pressing the button. And when 1 billion doesn't do it and 10 billion don't do it, and really once you're past 10 billion, I mean, well, you can have a private Airbus A380, a 600-foot yacht. You're basically greeted in nations as a head of state. What's after that? Well, then they get power. That's the next high, whether it's power to run countries or to architect wars or to overthrow governments. That's the next one. After that, it's longevity. It's how do you just keep this game running? And I
It
don't.
says here that Cheney was born in 41, which would only make him 83. I find that hard to believe. I
Me
think they've
too.
won the clock back a
Me
little bit
too.
there.
Yeah, I know Kissinger was
But
99.
yeah, but yeah, and that, usually Freemasons, they say you're not allowed to live past 99 because there's 33 levels in the top of the or in the bottom of the pyramid, but then there's another 66 below, that you can't see, that are the covert ones. So 99 is supposed to be as far as you go as a Freemason. Now, Billy
Let's
Graham,
let's check what his birthday is. Sorry, keep going.
yeah. So and they're supposed to willingly decide how to tap out. So we'll see if Kissinger lives up to his. The Queen was getting up there at
96.
96. Yeah. So, but supposedly, I had a guy whose father was like a 65 or 66-degree Mason tell me this. So it could be bullshit or it could be the truth, but they said no more than 99 because it upsets the apple cart. It's not the perfect pyramid anymore.
Do you think? And now we're kind of waiting until like and so Kissinger was born on May 27th, 1923. So next May will be his 99th birthday or 100th birthday. So we'll see. Um, Now we're kind of getting a little more into, I guess I would say, the occult. And I know we got to wrap this one up, but I haven't heard back from the upcoming guests. So as far
Oh,
as I'm concerned, we can keep talking until they appear or until they call me. So by the way, if at
okay.
any point I get a phone call on the iMac and it gets really loud, that'll be the end. But they haven't contacted me today, so I don't know. But we are kind of getting a little more into like, yeah,
Kissinger might be mad now, and he's not
Kissinger,
coming up.
he just told me you you have yeah. Um, you could have that like the occult idea, right? That it is like they sell your soul to the devil, and there's so many people that are just tapping out now. They're just pausing the episode on Spotify. They're just exiting out, going into. But it is the idea that right, you sell your soul to the devil, and that you get all of your wishes. You can become the best ever. You can become the superstar, the athlete, the president, the ladies' man, the whatever. But at the end, the devil comes and you pay your tab. It could be something where it's like they're feverishly digging in their heels to not go. And again, that's not what I believe. I do believe in a God, but that's about as much as I'm willing to say. I don't think the human mind can comprehend it. But a lot of the things they do participate in, I'm not saying I believe in. I'm saying a lot of them do believe in it. That you can get whatever you want if the idea of the Nick Bryant goes into it and the Franklin scandal. I mean, not his beliefs, but the beliefs of these people that are in these groups, right? It's the defilement of innocence. It's fucked up. But they also believe that they pay for it afterwards. It could be that they're digging in their heels and they're saying, just put one more quarter in the ride. I don't want to give me 5 more minutes, mom. I don't want to get up for school just yet.
Yeah.
Maybe it's that.
Well, yeah, I think it could be one of those things where, in order to have order, this is, I think, what the Masons believe. You have a perfect foundations are really important to Masons, right? And you don't want to build a church on a bad foundation. You don't want to build anything on a bad foundation. But especially in the old days when Freemasonry was just starting, most of them were traveling experts, guild experts in Masonry. And they're really strict about how a foundation should relate to the wall and all this sort of thing and how plumb it should be. And one
Mm-hmm.
bad brick could throw off the whole thing and cause a subsidence or whatever and cause a collapse. And we had a lot of the great churches in Europe. I don't know if it was Chartres, it got bombed, or if it fell. I thought the roof at Chartres fell. I thought the roof at Rouen fell because they just get so high. They had this building composition get so high. Well, from that, I think came the psyche or the code of ethics with Masons. If we have one person who's aberrant and out of line in society, it can do the same thing to society, right? So we have to make sure that we tap that brick out and get rid of that brick and then put in a replacement brick so that we have our nice wall.
Okay.
And that's very much, and somebody's got to tap that brick out. Somebody has to be the sledgehammer, and it's not so pretty because they usually end up in a car accident or some other bad
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure I'm believing I mean, I was told by another guy that, or a woman that said her father, 33rd degree Mason, you have to go to Washington, D.C. to the head Grand Lodge. And first thing they did is have to drink human blood out of a skull. I mean, it's like, this is told to me, 33 going to 34. That's your first.
As
May
as Tim Dillon says, once you read and really internalize what exactly MK Ultra was, and once you really, really settle and digest the fact that we brought back Nazis, which helped lay the foundations for MK Ultra, which was induced trauma to fracture personalities to create assassins with no memory to rule the world. Yeah. The idea that they might also drink human blood, you're like, okay, sure, whatever. You like it's once you understand what World War II was, like once you understand we dropped A bombs, the idea that we also used flamethrowers in the island hopping campaign, we used to burn them out of caves. Okay, we created a star over Hiroshima. Like, all
yeah.
right, yeah, I'm sure we also used flamethrowers. It's once you establish that upper level of kidnapping American citizens, Operation Midnight Climax in San Francisco, the CIA, to fracture their brains using psychedelics inspired by Nazi scientists who cut their teeth in Dachau, they might, yeah, maybe they'll also do some exosome research. That's not the shocking part to me.
Well, and it could be that MK Ultra, I think Casey, and
Well,
then
Casey.
yeah, Bill Casey, and then the other guy
Oh,
covered
oh,
that up. Oh,
good,
here you go. I'll let you go,
the good
Tommy.
doctors here. Well, that was going to be great anyway. We were going to start drifting off. Well, George, get to wrap this one up. As always, brother, I love you. I'll put all your stuff in the description and I'll send you the episode when it's up. All right.
Thanks, Tom. Bye.
Godspeed, brother. Take care.